right, everybody, welcome. This is the first of 4 webinars focused on Office 365 different components. Today, we will be focusing on Outlook. We'll be mixing up some PowerPoint slides along with some demos of different functionality. Moving forward, here is the series information. I believe most of you have this or seen it, so you'll be able to pick and choose what you really want to focus on. Today, Outlook, mostly focusing on the application, some of the new options for it, best practices. We'll be going over OneDrive, which was formerly OneDrive for Business. Really great tool. It's pretty much like SharePoint, but for one person. SharePoint's a team collaboration, company collaboration. OneDrive is something that you work on files, pre-production ready, if you will. So if you're working on drafts of a new document templates or invoicing method, you work on it in your own OneDrive where you have that revision history as you do with SharePoint. And then once you get to a point where you're ready for prime time and to share it with the company, that's when you put it up in SharePoint. And Microsoft Teams, which is for me, it is an incredible tool, including the mobile app, is really nice. Sharing files, getting polls, project management, the whole 9 yards. So we have some really fun and interesting topics to review as we go through this series. So a little bit about me. I'm manager at support service here at the SMB Help Desk. I've been here for about 3 years. I am certified with my MCSA and MSE in Office 365. There's me up in the top right corner at our home with my oldest son, Ronan. Here's my LinkedIn information. Feel free to add me. There we have chickens. So there's my youngest, Ronan, with Rosie. And then here is my littlest, Leon, at the Smithsonian from a couple weeks ago, doing his best dinosaur impersonation. So as we go through this, we're going to use Outlook as part of this tool and webinar series so that you can email me your questions. So something that we're reviewing, say, hey, I want to know more about this, or I'm trying to do this feature set, that would be the way to send that email. I have that email open. It is what I'm using for the demo. I'll be jumping from the deck to an Outlook session with webinar at smbhd.com with Outlook from Office 365. So as we go through it, or if you have questions that you're dying to know about Outlook, if I can't answer it now, we'll be able to touch it at a summary of another webinar series. So one moment. So let us get started. So our agenda, sending, replying, forwarding emails, opening, sending attachments, manipulating context, importing and exporting, working with reminders, shared calendars, signatures, recalling a message, and also scheduling meetings and converting emails to a meeting. As my discussions with Kat, we are going to start off with a lot of the basic functionalities of Outlook and then go more granular as we go through. Again, I will be slowly jumping back and forth from PowerPoint deck to a live demo just to show some of these feature sets. All right, so here we go. So creating a new email message. Obviously, everyone's capable of this and knows how to do it. There are a couple little things of using shortcuts, Control-Shift-M, and also sending it. So what I'm going to do now is I want to jump over to my production demo and just go over some of the options there. Let me see here. All right, so everyone should now see my inbox, webinar at smbhd.com, something I spun up a little earlier. Again, email me your questions or any concerns and stuff that you want to talk about. And if we touched on it during this session, we can go into it further or ignore it and move on to some other questions. But I just want to go over some of the standard options with new emails. As you have your ribbon and you are able to see to CC. Most of your options are going to be in this top level message. So we'll be able to obviously go more granular with your insert options, format text, and review. So adding blind carbon copy from, if you have multiple email addresses, you have those options. Voting buttons, permissions, if you have a level of encryption that you need to send on an email, those are options. Delay delivery, things of that nature. Also some formatting under this tab. Basic format text, cleaning it up, adding bullet points. Fairly standard in that regard of having our different options. But most of it is going to be from this message tab. Now, attaching a file is a cool feature, but what I really wanted to get into was the different ways of attaching a file. So let me show this while we're here. So now if we attach a file and it is locally on our workstation, now that means that it lives on our C drive or D drive. That means that it only lives on our PC. We only have the option to send it as an attachment. Now, as Office 365 has grown and the adoption of this platform, we're now able to share access to documents. I don't honestly ever send an attachment internally with anybody. I have a lot of reports that I send to my boss. I have a lot of team members sending me log files, things of that nature. So I don't want to have one copy of this information statically in one place. I would like to attach an access to a file or folder or a spreadsheet. So what I'm doing is, like right now, if I go to attach file, browse this PC. Now, if I just look at this PC documents and just grab something, this user list, you see that this is an attachment, it is a file. Now, because it was locally on my workstation, that was my only option. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove this attachment, we'll go attach file, browse this PC. I'm going to go to my own directory here, and I have demo files. So now if I add this logs file, I have this option. So the cool part about this is I can share a link which would give people real-time access to this file. You can do this from within Excel. You can do this from within Word. But for general compliance, ease of management of these documents, it is much easier, safer, and just generally streamlined to actually share these links. So if I share this link, when I send this to, say, myself, I'm going to be getting a link. Now you can set some level of permissions on this. Again, you guys have Office 365. You guys are on a business premium. We're using an E5, which has a couple more granular security options and a couple other things with additional storage and stuff. I'm not really going to get too far into that, but this is baseline for pretty much anybody on Office 365, where anyone can edit that gets this file, anybody inside the company and or recipients. So anyone, that's meaning that I can forward it to someone and they can re-forward it, and then people will just, whoever has access can do that. Anybody in my organization can edit it or view it, and then just the recipients, whoever I'm actually sending it to. And this is the same as if you're doing from SharePoint or OneDrive. I don't want to talk too much about those because we have a whole other webinar for those specific technology sets, but it's similar where you're sharing from SharePoint, you're sharing from OneDrive. You know, I'm not really sure about the compatibility with Dropbox or some of those other parties, as we're Microsoft's partner, gold partner. We drink the Kool-Aid and we use the technologies, and it works well for us and most of our clients. So those are just some of the options for sending attachments. Again, it's preferred to send them as links now, especially internally. Externally, again, it's good because you don't want to have different revisions of spreadsheets. So I'm going to email a spreadsheet to my boss. I made my updates, she made her updates, and then if somebody misses an email that's the only place where that document lives. You want that document to be dynamic in SharePoint, in OneDrive, in a shared storage, backed up in the cloud, where you're just giving access to these files and folders now so that you can be on the same page. So you don't have to say, oh, I need to make this one change, let me recall that message, or let me send you up version 17. No, we have one version, we share access to it, and when I'm in the document, I actually share it from Word or Excel, say, hey, here's that report you're looking at, here's what's going on, boss. And then I tell like some of my team members, hey, these are the steps I need to do. Everybody's on the same page from sharing access to links. All right, so let us get back to the deck and move over to our next slide. Forwarding, replying to email. I believe everybody knows how to do that. I've been constantly just hitting reply all just because I really want to keep everybody on the same page. Obviously, if there's a bunch of people on an email chain and you hit reply, you're just replying to that same person. When you use forwarding, you have to verify that any attachments or files that were attached to that previous email are ported over. Sometimes those are lost when you do a forwarding. I did touch base a little bit on the blind carbon copy. Anytime I send an email, I always hit validate the name or check the name, and that's just best practice to knowing when it's going out. When I sent out all these emails, there was a typo where I saw that it was .co instead of .com. I was able to find that through the check names, get a bounce back, and that was able to work from there. So our next topic, we went over the attachment level of what to do and how to attach it. Now, when you open or save an attachment, it's fairly straightforward. Double click, 99% of the time it's going to work for you. If you don't have the necessary programs associated to it, then obviously you're going to have to download those or use another program. Sometimes if you get an Excel document and you didn't have Excel on it, you can try to open up with WordPad or Notepad, but then you're going to have some issues with formatting. So again, let's just jump over for the quick demo side of when we get an email and what our steps are there. So if everyone can see, I have an attachment here. I get into this specific email, and you have the options for this document of what do you want to do? You want to save as? You want to save it as attachment? Do you want to upload this to one of your drives? You can see I have my OneDrive already populated here, so I can just take a download or an attachment and put it into a shared storage. Removing it, obviously printing it, preview, things of that nature. So that's just some screenshot I took before, and let's get back over to the deck. So importing, exporting contacts is sometimes very necessary. We went through this with the email migration process where this was automated as part of that process, but sometimes you need to be able to import or export all your contacts, and you can export it in different ways. I don't want to go too far into it because most of the time your IT team and or migration partner are going to be part of this, but I just wanted to go over just some of the basics of importing, exporting contacts. So let me get over to the other screen. So we're over in File, and then we're able to open and export, import and export. Obviously, there'll be some other options in here that we can dive into a little bit later. Again, this is going to be more of general concepts. If there's specific questions you have about a certain process or add-on, we'd be happy to jump into there. But as you can see, we have most of these options are for importing information, iCalendar from Google or from Apple devices, but we're looking at exporting to a file is what most people are going to do when they're in this field. So we have a PST and CSV, comma separated values. CSV can be opened up in Excel, some Notepad, Notepad Plus. Outlook data file is specifically for Outlook. So you're able to pull out your emails, export the PST and then import it into another workstation. Again, with Office 365, that's not really necessary anymore because your email's in the cloud. Whenever you log into a computer, it pulls down your email to that application. If you're going onto a web page, going to Internet Explorer, Chrome, Safari, go to office.com, you log in with your email address and password, you have direct access to your emails, which is really nice. So if you ever have a problem with your local Outlook on your workstation where you go to Microsoft Outlook and it doesn't want to open, there's always a nice option of going into the web browser on top of your mobile. It's an easy way of diagnosing issues. Hey, is my email down? Well, my application's not working on my workstation. Let's see what Outlook Online looks like. So I'm not going to go through this whole process. I just want to touch base on that. You do have these options of exporting mailboxes, emails, and also contacts. So more of a granular of exporting contacts, doing it to a CSV, and you're going to be exporting your Outlook address book to a CSV, so you'll be able to open that with Excel in a way that you can read it and or pull out information. So if there was a mailbox that you were retiring, you can say, all right, well, I don't want to port all these contacts over. I don't need this email anymore. My old AOL account is just not necessary, but someday I might need these contacts. That's the one time that you're going to want to go through this process of exporting these contacts. So you'll be able to cite those old contacts, their email address, phone numbers, that kind of information from an Excel instead of, I would say muddying up your current Outlook profile with a bunch of old emails and contacts. This is just a nice way of resourcing old information. Again, here's a little example of that CSV file and ways of doing it, of just seeing what the information that you'll be getting from that. All right. I'm gonna unmute everybody. If anybody has any questions or if there's any issues with audio or video, now would be a good time.
This is Harlan. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Quick question. You told us how we can attach a link to the document. Can you also attach a link to a folder? I'm going to give you an example. I regularly update price lists.
Okay.
Create a link. That link is going to be gone as soon as I update the file with a new one. So can I create a link to a folder where someone can just click to the folder and then whatever they see in there is a current document or document?
Hello,
there
Brian
are
speaking.
options. Okay, here, let me mute everybody and leave you on. Right. So in regards to specific folder sharing, there are options, but most of the time it's going to be attaching a specific file. When you're looking at a folder itself, it's not going to really let you. It's looking for a specific file. So that's just not normally an option of a folder. You can do that from specific SharePoint or OneDrive where you're able to share a folder there, and I'll get into that from there, but Outlook's not really the best place or an option for sharing a specific folder for somebody to jump into. Again, OneDrive, SharePoint have those options, and it works well. It's just Outlook's more of that one time, one document kind of thing.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to get back to it, and then we'll do another round of questions in a little bit. So setting up reminders, something that a lot of people do use. I manage my tasks a different way. This is an easy way of just saying, hey, I need to do this tomorrow, today, later, and putting some flags behind it. Again, I don't want to just read slides to you guys. I really want to spend a lot of time doing demos of the different actions. A lot of these things are going to be a personal experience when it comes to Outlook and or Office 365. There's going to be 1,000 ways to do things. So I segment my time and organize myself from converting emails into calendar events, and then I bring in team members and give them task lists on top of that. Reminders are just saying, hey, this is something really important, easy way of flagging it. Just as in tasks and reminders, for me, it's not apparent to me, so I don't use those systems to tag important emails or tasks or assignments or follow-ups. But I just wanted to review that this is some ways of doing the reminder and just doing a follow-up. Also, just as a side note, we will be sharing the deck and the webinar after this. It probably won't be today because I want to do a little scrubbing on both of them, just make sure everything looks good. But we'll be shipping that out. Creating calendars. Now, I think this is one thing that a lot of people get confused on with using Outlook, sharing calendars, shared calendars, new calendars, holiday calendars, all the fun that comes along with those. So every time that you now want to access somebody's calendar, it's fairly straightforward of granting access to someone's calendar or sharing a calendar. Internally, we have all of our calendars open here at SMBHD. So I can see everybody's tasks in their calendar, what their workload's like, which is helpful for my team members and helpful for me where I say, hey, my Outlook is my bloodline. So if you see a gap in my calendar, go ahead and take it. I share my calendar out. There's options where, I can review this later. If you guys want that granular level, we run a script against our Office 365 tenant where I can see if one of my team members is blocking off 2 hours of his time to go to the DMV or take his dog to the vet. I'm like, well, I know you have things to do, but you should probably be on this call for this, or why are you spending 4 hours paying your bills? So it's a granular option, not always necessary, but that's just one way of having shared calendars, sharing your own internal calendar and being able to see that. So let me just go over, again, this is a demo account that I'm sharing with you guys, so it's not really populated. I really wasn't about to bring my production account into this. So let me share what I have over here. Let's close out this email. So right now we don't see a whole lot of options. It's a very basic account, but what I wanted to touch on was adding other calendars. So I usually go open shared calendars. So again, I'm in my calendar, which I navigate between a little mailbox here and the calendar. My calendar, you can also add like holiday calendars, things of that nature. It just sort of gums it up. So adding a calendar, open shared calendar. I can look for mine. Okay, here I am. You're able to see everything from that calendar. I have a shared calendar. You can see my constants, and then you can't obviously put something on somebody else's calendar, but you can say, okay, I know that this person has a time in there. Now, if their calendar is configured for sharing, again, that's just something that IT can help you out with. It's as simple as, hey, I want to add calendar. I want to find a shared calendar, and I'm just going to look for my boss. So I see her there. And then we have multiple tabs. So in my production one, I have a list of a bunch of different people there. So I'm able to add these people to that, know what they are. Scheduling is a lot easier. And again, because all our calendars are shared and open, it's really a good way of collaborating, knowing what time works for people and going from there. All right, back over to our deck. So we can share a calendar. So if we create a new one, you do have the options of sharing it here. So this can be a shared calendar. You can publish the calendar. You can also set specific permissions here. There's not a whole lot to it. You can send this calendar to someone if you want somebody outside of your organization to have access, sort of like the iCalendar that you'll see with Apple devices. Google devices have their own calendar sets, and I honestly believe they're all pretty much on that iCalendar. So I can send this out to, my mom if I want to say, hey, this is my schedule, mom, I'm sorry, I'm really busy. That's what we can do, and you can have all the different levels of details there of sharing out your calendar. Different permission sets and what people can see. Obviously, you have some granular options for showing what different people are, who has access, what type of access. If you have a receptionist or an assistant, you're able to give access to that person and let them send as, send as you or send on behalf of you, and set your calendar and send emails as that. And we can get into that a little bit later if needed. But those are just some of the options of sharing your own calendar, setting the permission sets. You can copy that calendar, move it over to another place, and just general properties and stuff like that of that calendar, where it lives, how it lives, archiving, and synchronization. Obviously, anything you do here, you're going to see in Office 365, which is really nice. So that calendar will follow you, and it's live, as in, on Office 365. So let's get back over to the deck. Here we are, we're still here. And let's just jump to the next one. So if you have a populated list, you can select specific people that can have access to your calendar. Again, it all has to do with how IT can figure out the permission sets of your calendars, if they're being shared, how they're being shared, what level of detail there is, and then the visibility level too, also for that calendar. So this is sort of a big deal, and signatures can go many different ways. Setting up a new workstation, your signature is not going to be there. That's one of the few things that doesn't follow you in regards to Office 365. I'm going to go through the process of assigning a signature to my new account webinar at smbhd.com, and we'll just go through some of the just generic options and more custom. Now, most companies have a default set by marketing and or sales of what their signature should be. Ours include some job offers, my direct phone number, our support information, things of that nature, and we'll just go from there. So let me set my signature, and I'll show you a couple ways of doing that and just ways of managing it. All right. So we go over to here. All right, so the way of doing your signature, it is not straightforward. You have to actually be in a new message to modify your signature at the proper place. So as you can see, I am opening up a new message, and then right now you see that I do not have a signature linked to this account. So if I send out any emails, there's no signature. Obviously, button of signature will get us there. I have some predefined signatures that is part of my Outlook application on this workstation, but inside of signatures is where the options we have, where when does your signature come into play and which signature. So I have two signatures. This is my main one, new one. It's fairly common that's called new. Obviously, you can do your formatting in Word or another document, copy and paste it over. This is just sort of our standard set for the company. Now, you can link it to different email accounts, again, if you have that on your application, your Outlook application. New messages, I like to have it in all new messages and replies. It's easy for clients, team members, prospective clients, obviously, to get in touch with me, and I always leave that. So I already had a predefined one. I took it there, which is nice, and I'll show you what you need to do in case that you're on a brand new machine and you're doing a fresh install of Outlook. You're like, hey, how do I get my old signature over? I don't want to bother IT with this. I want to do it myself. So as you see, I said all new messages, all replies and forwards are going to use this signature new. So I'm going to leave that there. Oh, well, it didn't populate. What's going on here? Well, it's because I already had the email open. So if we go to a new email, you're going to see my signature there. Now let's say we go into our signatures and we delete and we delete. So now I got no signatures. Yes, the signature's still there. So you just got a brand new computer, IT went home, you need your signature on there, you're like, how do I do this? Well, look at any emails that you sent out. Your email is going to sync. The signature is not so much. So we go into here, hey, look, this guy's just sent me an email. There's a signature. Copy it, go into a new message, signature. As you see, there's no signature options there. We're going to do a new one. We're going to properly name it, properly named, and then copy and paste, properly named, properly named. Looks good, that's me, that's what I do, that's my phone number, that's my email. Always looking for new people, sounds good to me, save. All right, again, it's not there, close out our email, new message, we're back to that. So if you have a pre-existing signature, you can easily copy and paste that from an old mail, from sent, from new, if you send it to yourself or just go in your sent items, copy and paste, and then you can populate it there. All right, so let's go over to our deck. Recalling a message. I'm going to take this point, we're just about the halfway, and I'm going to open it up for more questions before I jump into there. I'm going to unmute everybody. First come, first serve, so if anybody has any questions.
This is Kat, and I was wondering if there was a way for marketing to push out a signature format to everyone.
There is a way. Here, let me mute everybody, and then I will unmute you. So, Kat, there is a way of doing that where it is pushed out on the back end. Sometimes you're able to do pre-pending and post-pending in the email messages. There is a standardization of the signature. I would have to get you specific steps. I believe that it is accomplished through PowerShell connected to Exchange Online as a standard signature, but most of the time the signatures are linked to that specific account. So usually what we do is we say marketing has a new email template for the signature, and then they bounce it out and everybody does that. I would have to double check to see, again, with Office 365, it changes a lot, and there could be a level, but then you still have those granular information of what you want as that person's information, not just, if you just want everybody having the same signature, that's pretty easy. There are some third-party options, so I'm gonna go back on what I said a little bit, where you can have it, but it's not gonna have some of that details, and you'll probably have to use a third-party application, which piggybacks on, I'm trying to think of a few offhand, which there's a handful of them that I've seen at different conferences that does signature management, also has to do with your Office 365 user information. So usually it's a manual process, but let me look into that and see if there's a way of blasting it out. Again, you're gonna have specific information for that person's email address, for their contact information, for their name, that you just sort of can't blast out, and usually a third party is needed, but I'll double check that and I'll follow up with that and see what your options are of just having it standard, and then maybe you can be able to pull from it, but right now I know it's a third party option that you would have to pay for. All right. Hey, I got.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's intercompany.
All right, let me get back through this, and then we'll touch base again in a little bit.
Yeah, I hear that too.
Yeah.
All right, so recalling a message in that time that you will have to do that, fairly straightforward, and you do get a notification on if that is, if it was successful in recalling this message. So right now, how it works is you send that message out, depending on that person's email configurations, if they automatically read those or if they have rules involved, but we'll just go through a demo real quick of recalling a message. A lot of times you send out an email and then some new information comes up, so that information's stale, and that's the time that you recall it, but you also want to know if it was successful or not. So right now I will go over and demo this of sending out an email to my team and then recalling it, and then we'll see who was able to click on it real quick and then who wasn't, and then we'll get that report. This is definitely a useful tool. Sometimes you're able to put in a delay of when your emails go out if this is a common occurrence, but usually this is all you really need to get your emails back. So let me go ahead to our demo. All right, so I'm gonna send an email to and we do our check names. Doesn't like any of those for some reason, so we'll cut that. Check name, there we go. Sometimes you gotta do it step by step. It's just the easy way of knowing that. So test email to recall. You all are doing a wonderful job. So we're gonna send that out. Now you can see I have these other options of the blind carbon copy, not something I normally do, so I don't really need that. And also I can just remove the from. If you are someone that likes to have a read receipt and delivery receipt, those are your options. I don't usually do that because it's an extra step for the person reading it, but in times of very sensitive information or time sensitive, definitely a good option of having delivery receipt and a read receipt. Again, we talked a little bit about permissions, level of encryption that you can do, and confidentiality. So let's ship this out. So we'll go in there. We see down there it was sent. It was sent there. Now what do we do? All right, so we get into this email that I sent out. We go to our actions. So I'm going to recall this message. Now, do we want to delete all of them, or do we want to delete and then replace? Delete and replace is pretty good. And then we also see our options. Tell me if this recall succeeds or fails. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to hit send. So it says you tried to recall this message at 2:38. This was sent out on 2:38. And now from this account, we should start seeing, hey, all right, your message to Bill, Sohail, and John was successful. Oh, looks like John read it. John doesn't usually read his email, so that's actually pretty good. And then Sohail read it. So as I would imagine, Bill didn't read it yet. Jonathan read it, Sohail read it, which is cool. So you get to find out who got what, and then you can recall that message. So you can know that Bill got the new message where it says you're doing a great job instead of a wonderful job, and John and Sohail got the wonderful. So that's just the basic steps for recalling a message. Obviously, the sooner you do it, the better your chances. Again, if they're on a mobile phone, if they're on a workstation, if they're on an iPad, there's all different levels of how people receive their email and look at it, and then your recalling options go from there. So let us get over to our deck. So scheduling a meeting, this is pretty cool in my opinion of just scheduling a meeting and what I use it for now. A big part of it for me is I get a lot of long-term tasks. It's not something I can do in 5 or 10 minutes. It's something that I have to block out a half an hour for. So I get a request from a client, from a team member, or from management ownership saying, hey, I need this done. It's not so much a project, but it's also not a onesie, twosie, 5 minutes request. So what I do is I manage these emails as a meeting. I'm sort of jumping off topic a little bit from what scheduling a meeting is, which I can go into. I'm probably just start with that of scheduling that meeting from Outlook. So let's just do that real quick because I think it's something that if it's done right is really, really nice, and if done wrong, obviously there can be miscommunication. So let's get back to our Outlook. Let's get to our calendar. We see our calendar. I got pretty much nothing going on, which is a wonderful feeling. I usually sort it by work week, Monday through Friday. So I'm going to be scheduling a bunch of one-on-ones with my team members by the end of the month. So right now, you can go to new appointment, you can double click. Obviously, we are a Teams company, Microsoft Teams. We'll go into this in depth in that Teams session. So you can send out Outlook invites as a team, which actually attaches the team meeting invite. This is good for internal and external. For internal, they'll have the option in their Teams to click that, so then you'll be able to see that person, share your screen, work on live documents together, which is pretty cool. You can jump this over. So I don't really use Skype anymore, but the same options there. Meeting notes that you can add to it. So let's just cancel that out and just do a normal team. So if you double click in there, sometimes you get the notification and reminders. I usually just click the time and hit new appointment. Obviously, subject would be one-on-one. Location, it's going to be, this is cool, we use different locations. So you actually invite meeting rooms. We have meeting rooms all over our office in Chicago and Austin. So I'm going to say we're going to meet in Metropolis. Always have an agenda for any time you send out any Outlook invite. It's just, there's no reason not to have one and waste everybody's time with just sort of shooting from the hip. I always try to give my team members, hey, this is what I'm trying to get out of this. This is what I want to complete this meeting with. Is I'm going to say, this is our project scope. We're going to build an SOW for this client. We're going to have 3 different options for troubleshooting. So building out an agenda is just general office etiquette, in my opinion. I've gotten to the point where I don't accept a lot of meetings that don't have an agenda, because why are we in a meeting if there's no agenda? That's a little bit crazy on my side, but I try to be efficient with my time. So when we get to this point, I like using the scheduling assistant. So when you start adding people to your appointment, you'll be able to see if they're internal to your company, what their time looks like. So I'm going to add Bill here, go to my scheduling assistant, and I can see that these are the times that work for them. So if internally, with people that you have access to their calendars, you can add a bunch of people here and then change it around post-fact. So I'm going to add Sohail, I'll add John Myers, then I go over to my scheduling assistant, and honestly, I use this for myself, and I'll get into that later when I convert emails over to meetings. So I can see, okay, so definitely not going to do 10:30. We got a meeting there. I don't want to do that. So I can just go ahead and say 9:30 on Thursday. That looks good to me. Get back to the appointment. And also, so if you do have locations set up in your Office 365, I can set up, our office is called Central City. So let me see if it takes with the check name. It's probably going to be Central City at smbhd.com. No, that's not going to populate. Yes, so you can see how it asked me to update the location to Metropolis, which it already was, but it was an email. So I'll say yes. Now we look at our scheduling assistant, and I can see that people are using this location. As you can see from that little green, it's a resource. So I can say, all right, well, if I want my team and I want the nice conference room with the fish tank, I'm going to have to do it at 3 o'clock or this time, which is a really nice tool for scheduling it with your team members and local resources. And I can do this too with our Austin office. If I want my team, the couple guys that are down there, I'm like, I want you guys in a conference room for this call. I don't have to go ask a bunch of people. I go, is it scheduled? I can tell it from right here that, you know, they have Bat Cave or something down there, and I would be able to see the availability of that resource, so I can schedule my team members to be there. I can be in a boardroom up here, And then we are all collaborating that, and it's not a bunch of emails saying, hey, who's using this conference room on Tuesday at 5? It's all right here, first come, first serve. Whoever grabs it, gets it. And I think that's a really cool option. So scheduling a meeting, you have your options of finding out who is available by the scheduling assistant. You'll be able to find out what's available for your resources, send it out as a Teams, adding an agenda. Obviously, you have your recurrence, where we have weekly meetings with different clients, different team members. Set it up. You have to have an end by date a lot of times for third parties like Google or Apple. So just something you usually want to do is just say, hey, you know, in a couple of years, we're just going to cancel that just because you'll get flagged once in a while. But it's really nice for doing this, and you can modify different occurrences. Let me go ahead and jump back over to the deck. So scheduling a meeting, I think we went over a fair amount of those different options. And let's see what we have next. Schedule a meeting. You can see how the different ways of actually adding attendees to it. You can see that where you're adding people in Office 365 or Exchange. Again, if you have access to those accounts as a shared calendar, you're able to see their availability. Sometimes it'll just be marked as busy. Other times, if you set up that permission set, you'll actually see if they're really busy before or after, so you can schedule properly. Again, the scheduling assistant is great there, and you have the options for required attendee, optional, and then also your resource. Again, this is sort of going into the location names and adding that. Definitely attaching a file to it is just same as an email. So we can go over to here, and let me jump over to our other screen. So we have our insert where we can attach a file within it. You can have your agenda there. I have documents that need to be filled out, or just different processes, pictures, things like that, links. It's pretty cool. You pretty much have the same functionality as you do in PowerPoint and Word if you want to make this look really fancy, or adding tables that you want to do. I usually attach a shared spreadsheet to these. I'm saying, all right, Tom, I want you to fill in column A before the meeting. Bill, I need you to be column B. And John, I want you to review all your information, populate C before this meeting, so that when we can hit the ground running. And that's just something you can do with attaching a spreadsheet from SharePoint or from OneDrive, where everybody has access working on one document that's being backed up and saved in the cloud. There is the options there. So let's get back to the deck. Converting an email to a meeting. Again, my favorite part of Outlook. I don't know why I'm so excited about it, but it's how I manage all the about 1,000 emails I get a day. I sift that down to probably 15 action items if I don't, just respond to it immediately and get it out of the way. So let me go through the process of doing that and just showing the way that I've been doing this for probably 8 months now, and just what's worked for me. So let's go ahead and jump over to that and see how that's looking. So we got a couple emails. I'm going to cancel out this. I don't want to save any changes. I don't want to send anything. So we get back to our email. So looks like I haven't gotten any questions yet, which is just fine. I think we have enough content to review to get us through the hour. So I got this backlog. I gotta go over this stuff. Honestly, I still haven't done it yet. So what am I going to do? So I want, as we are in this view, I can go into another step or two of just the view, but I use the message preview option with 1 line. You can do 2 lines where it changes what you see underneath. I also like the reading pane on the right-hand side. If it's off, then you just sort of get this not so optimal view. You can do it on the bottom if you want. I think that's really hard to read, so I keep my reading pane on the right. Again, this is from just being in the mail setting, in Outlook, and View. You have your options for reading pane. It's just how I manage it, and I'm able to do a lot more reading and replies fairly quickly. So, okay, back to where we are. So I have my email. I'm at home. What do I want to do? I want to move it. Well, that doesn't look like the right options. What about down here? Okay, so we want to, again, move this email. And because all these emails were sort of categorized on this new account, we might not have all our options. So let's get into this email, move it to another folder. We have our options to move this to a calendar. Now, usually that's more of a one-click, but you saw that I had to take that extra step. Now, I'm going to schedule this for myself. This is how the Outlook reminder or Outlook meeting is going to look. So in my own, if you saw my production one, you'd see that this is just fairly filled up. So I can just say, all right, I want to say I'm going to do this task that my boss asked me. I'm going to do it tomorrow at 10 a.m. So what I'm going to do is hit there, save and close. I'm done. Email disappears from my email queue, and then we go back to my calendar, and we see this test email is in there. And then if I really want to see what that request was, yes, this is some of the basic information, but I can actually open up that previous email with that task in it. Now, I use this where I get an email from, let's say, management saying, hey, I need this report. So I attach that, I move it to an Outlook invite, and then from there, I'm actually able to bring in other people for this appointment and add different attendees to it. So I'm gonna say, all right, I need your help with this. I'm gonna need your help with this. Here's the email for reference, and then I schedule it, and then they're going to see that, oh, what happened here? Oh, I didn't actually put a location. So just like as it says, oh, you didn't send a subject, obviously everybody needs to have a subject populated before sending an email. So I'm gonna say this is gonna be in my office. Send it out. Now I've converted an email to a meeting, brought in additional team member resources, and then with the scheduling assistant, I'll be able to see if they've accepted or not after some point, once that goes through there. So I'm the organizer. I haven't gotten my responses. Again, I just went to this tracking tab. I can convert it to a team meeting and then just send it out if I'm going to be out of the office, which is a pretty cool term there. Cancel it, but I'm not going to do that. Just close that out. But now we see I went from an email to a scheduled Outlook meeting, and I've added additional resources for that task. Is it for everybody? No, but it's the way that I keep myself organized with about 100 tasks a day, 15 pretty heavy requests, and then, again, 1,000 emails or so. All right, let's get back to the deck. We should be wrapping up shortly, and we'll open it up at the end for any questions. So converting an email to a meeting. Start time, end time, adding that location to it is helpful. That's my best usage of that. So just to review, I'll run back in the deck here where we just sort of covered a lot of things, sending, replying emails, forwarding emails, we're opening and sending attachments, how to send attachments, different types of attachments, which repository or location you're looking at for those files. Again, it's recommended to use SharePoint or OneDrive as the place or the repository where that file lives, because it's not hinged on your computer being on or only having one copy of that information. So it's a really good way of doing that. Contacts, importing, exporting, we touched on that, where you export contact lists, you can export your email address. If you want to go in and look at your emails, you can just open it up with Outlook from the same file open. You can open up a PST, or if you want to look at your contact information outside of Outlook, you can save it as a CSV, open an Excel or any other table program and review it that way. Reminders, touch very lightly on that. It's an option for setting yourself what tasks or emails take precedence and when you're going to get those done. Shared calendars, how to share, what the different options are for sharing, and then just how you can use that as a collaboration tool. We were reviewing options for signatures, how to create a new signature, how to modify a signature, when you're going to use a signature to send out internally or for replies, things of that nature. Scheduling a meeting, again, something that we looked at where you can use Teams or Skype, utilizing resources like conference rooms. We talked about recalling a message, which is very useful, especially if you have stale information or you sent it out with a typo that you read. I reread every email I send out. I don't know why. I reread it before and then after I send it out, but that's just how I do it. And if I find something, I recall that message, append it, or I just remove it. Scheduling a meeting, fairly straightforward, and converting an email to a meeting. So those are some of the topics we reviewed in Outlook. There are a lot more functions and options there. Again, if you have questions, we will have time at the end of the fourth webinar, I believe it's Teams, because we'll just do sort of a little 15-minute wrap-up after that because there's a lot of technology sets in Teams, but I don't believe we'll use up the whole hour just focusing on Teams, but there's a whole lot there. So again, we can go down a rabbit hole. If there's any questions after any of these webinars, we can retouch those on another one. So I will open it up again. We'll have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. I know I have to figure out for Kat of just general policy to see if it's built in to Office 365 to have a standard signature. There are options, but again, from my understanding, it's third party. So let me go ahead and open up the floodgates. So does anybody have any questions or comments of what we reviewed, or is there something that I missed that you really wanted to find out about, or what do you got?
How do you add resource rooms?
So resource groups are set actually on, you can create those in Office 365. It's somewhat like a user. So you just create a resource group from the admin center in Office 365. So the IT guy usually does that, or whoever manages Office 365. Just like adding a new hire, it's the same thing. It's like, I'm going to create a new room. We'll call this conference room 7. You put the phone number in it, and then you can set it up to auto reply or auto accept invites, which is cool. So if you wanted to use like a specific screen in a conference room, you can say, I want that conference room, and then you just create that user. So what we do is we have a bunch of goofy names for 6 or 7 of them. They all have a phone in them, so we attach the phone to it there. So we just schedule it out with an extension and like that. So that's where you create an Office 365. That's going to be a request to your IT. Any other questions on Outlook with Office 365?
Hi, Cam. This is Kat.
Hey, Kat.
Hopefully I'm not going to get too much feedback here. I did have a question from a team member about scheduling when there are team members traveling internationally. Does the shared calendars automatically update the times based on those team members' locations? And if they're finding it's not, is there a way to double check that it is updating in those other time zones?
So it's going to be up to that person. So you're going to be coordinating with, so if I'm sending out an Outlook invite, you're looking at that with your time zone. So with changing over to a specific time zone, that's going to be on their side, if that makes sense. So if I sent an email to my boss who's in England, it's going to be at 4 p.m. Central, and then whatever it is on his side will be there. So I don't believe there's a time zone change with that, but again, that's a really good question that I'm going to note down on top of the signature thing, because there has to be options, because we're only in Central Time, so it doesn't really come up for us so much. But when I'm traveling, I get invites. I set my computer to, I'm flying to the East Coast occasionally, so I set my computer to that, so I know that that 9 a.m. meeting is actually 10 Central. So